Uncle Warren enrolled at the University of Missouri, but he ignored his studies as the prospect of joining the war was imminent. As expected, within a year he was drafted to World War II, and his dream of a career in the military finally began.
He had applied for West Point, but he had never heard anything much. And when he got drafted, and he was on his way to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and he got a telegram from the War Department that said, "You have been approved for West Point, but you'll be dismissed from the Army in order to do that."
The appointment was unexpected. Uncle Warren was actually third on the acceptance list, but the two before him had failed their physicals. True to its claims, life in the military academy was hard.
My mother was very proud of me getting out and going to West Point because she thought I'd do a little better. It was very difficult for me because I had played a lot before I went to the academy, and I had a hard time with my first year. But I worked hard.
I think it was tough. In those days, you did not go home. And he was there, and that was a hard thing, a small town boy far away from home. I think he had a difficult adjustment. But, you know, he wasn't a quitter, he wasn't going back. But I don't think it was easy by any stretch of the imagination.
Uncle Warren didn't quit. In 1946, he graduated from West Point as an infantry officer. Although tough, the lessons he'd learned were lifelong.
Well, I hated every day of it, but I was more than thankful. I was very proud, even though I hated it. It didn't make much sense. But I hated every minute I was there. But after I graduated, I wouldn't have given it up for anything.
He said he hated every minute of it, but it meant a tremendous amount of support in his life because it taught him things that nobody else would do. Like, for instance, you reason to a logical conclusion, and when you have reached that, you don't look back.
His dad didn't say a word to him, didn't say goodbye, or didn't say anything. He was there for 4 years, and when he graduated, his father went to West Point, and he shook his hand. So that was a great day for Warren when his dad shook his hand, and he changed.
Changed and trained to enter into World War II. Uncle Warren was sent to Puerto Rico, where he enjoyed military life and the social life it offered.
And I like the ladies down in Puerto Rico.
But more than that, Uncle Warren was an athlete who enjoyed playing sports in his free time. But during a friendly game of baseball, his life changed. Warren and his team were in the outfield.
Two of them were running for a fly ball, and he was backing up, and the sergeant was running, and he had on combat boots, and they both went up for the ball, and when they did that, his boot hit Warren and shattered his leg.
Warren was sent to Battle Creek, Michigan for treatment, but he was crippled even further when a doctor accidentally cut a nerve in his foot during one of numerous painful bone grafts. He was sent home to Charleston to rest and recover, but his injury didn't keep him from an active social life. As he explored his hometown, he soon spotted Betty Cooper, my grandmother's younger sister. Aunt Betty was familiar with Warren. My great-grandfather, Reverend Cooper, was friends with Warren's father, and her older sister, my Aunt Julia, had been his classmate in high school. Betty was home from college when Warren approached her.
I always knew him anyway. He's always been around town, and I knew him anyway. He's just older. But he had called me like when I was home from Baylor in March and asked me for a date, and I said, I'm going with him. So I didn't. And I went with somebody else. And then when I came home in May, I ran right smack into him on the street. So there was no, I couldn't lie out of it, you know. I couldn't say, well, I'm busy, because he caught me just like, and he asked me for a date, and I went.
When she told me she was going to get married, I thought, that's nuts. She's not going to marry him.
Yeah, 3 dates, that's enough. We didn't marry for a month, but in 3 days he asked me, and I told him I would let him know, so I let him know. I said yes.
I think they were probably stunned, like when she told her dad she was going to get married. He said, well, who are you going to marry? But, you know, they were a pretty cohesive group, and the fact that they knew the Hearnes family, I think it would be different if they had been from different communities.
The new couple returned to Puerto Rico, where Uncle Warren attempted a full recovery, and they happily awaited the birth of their first daughter, Lynn. However, troubling news was on its way.
A West Pointer had to be always perfect in their physical. They could not have any flaw, and he had that leg that was gimpy. That was all there was to it. And so they retired him. And all of a sudden, here we were, married and a baby, and his career was over.
To his extreme disappointment, Uncle Warren's lifelong dream of a military career was lost. He was only 27.